Spain has pardoned 9 jailed Catalan separatists behind a failed independence bid in 2017. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez says he hoped the move would draw a line under past confrontations with Catalonia's separatist-led regional government. Myanmar's armed forces have clashed with a militia group in the country's second city, Mandalay. It's the first such exchange of fire in a major urban centre. Voting's underway to choose Democratic and Republican nominees for the New York mayor. Given the city's political makeup, the Democratic winner will be the favourite to replace the incumbent Bill de Blasio in the autumn election. And Italy's Prime Minister Mario Draghi has joined calls for the final of the Euros to be moved from Wembley due to rising COVID-19 infections in England.
Spain's cabinet has pardoned 9 jailed leaders of Catalonia's independence movement. The pardon ends their sentences but bars them from public office. Agricultural exports restart in Gaza after being suspended for 6 weeks because of the brief war between Israel and Gaza's Hamas rulers. The U.S. Special Representative for North Korea meets with South Korean President Moon Jae-in to discuss policy toward the north. And Lake Mead, the largest lake created by a dam in the U.S., is at its lowest level ever as extremely dry conditions continue in America's West.
We begin with a major update in the case of a Japanese bureaucrat who took his own life after being forced to falsify public documents. It's the latest chapter in a political scandal that's dogged Japan's ruling party for years. Akagi Toshio altered documents related to the sale of state-owned land at well below market value. The finance ministry official kept a personal file outlining how he was pressured to be part of the tampering. The land had been destined to become a school, and the wife of then Prime Minister Abe Shinzo would have been its honorary principal. That led to accusations of nepotism, months of heated diet debate, and the eventual removal of her name and the names of politicians from the documents. Akagi's widow is suing the government and a former ministry official for about $1 million in damages over her husband's suicide. She recently fought for access to her late husband's file and won. Akagi wrote that he'd protested changing the documents and began the file because he wasn't convinced the finance ministry would bear full responsibility. The 518-page folder contains emails with instructions on how to falsify the documents, but no description of why.
I believe my husband left this file for the public to see. I want a reinvestigation by a third party based on this file.
Finance Minister Aso Taro says his ministry will continue to follow court orders in good faith. But he said the ministry has already conducted a thorough inquiry and it does not plan to open another probe. Turning to preparations for next month's Tokyo Olympics and the World Health Organization's decision to get involved. Games organizers announced this week that up to 10,000 fans will be allowed at venues as long as they don't exceed 50% of capacity. But the Prime Minister says that could still change if cases surge. The WHO now says it'll discuss antivirus controls with Japanese authorities and the International Olympic Committee this week. They'll look at screening and surveillance. The Olympics kick off in just 1 month on July 23rd. Before then, Tokyo's governor will take a break. The metropolitan government announced Koike Yuriko is taking several days off work due to fatigue. She's been handling the capital's COVID response, including the recent state of emergency. During the games, spectators may not be able to hoist a beer in the stands as they cheer athletes. NHK has learned that organizers are now planning to not allow alcohol drinks to be sold at venues. The head of the organizing committee said on Monday officials were considering serving alcohol, taking into consideration current local regulations on alcohol drinks as an anti-coronavirus measure. Strict rules are in place in Tokyo. Bars and restaurants can serve alcohol only until 7 p.m. Medical experts have voiced concern about serving alcohol at Olympic venues. They noted that spectators are urged to go home immediately after the events. Now to Indonesia, where the government is tightening coronavirus restrictions in response to a surge in new infections. The number rose to a record high of more than 14,500 on Monday. The daily tally of new cases in the Southeast Asian country had dropped to around 2,000, but started climbing again this month. The country's cumulative total has surpassed the 2 million mark. Officials say the spike was likely driven by people who traveled last month for the holidays following Ramadan. Authorities added that the Delta variant, first identified in India, has been spreading in the country. Starting on Tuesday, the government is requiring some companies in areas with high infection rates to have 75% of their employees work from home. Meanwhile, people in some areas of the capital, Jakarta, have been told to stay home in the evenings except for essential outings. A member of Myanmar's national soccer team has applied for refugee status in Japan after refusing to return home following a World Cup qualifier match. Pye Liang Aung made headlines when he displayed a three-finger anti-coup salute before the qualifier against Japan last month. He refused to fly back with his teammates last Wednesday, saying he feared punishment in Myanmar. On Tuesday, he filed for refugee status at the Osaka Regional Immigration Services Bureau. He also applied for a work permit under emergency measures set up by Japan's Immigration Services Agency in May for people from Myanmar wishing to extend their stays after their visas expire. Based on the circumstances, the agency plans to take procedures to grant him refugee status. The player said he feels at ease now and hopes asylum will be granted. He also said he hopes to go back to Myanmar when peace returns, but wants to stay in Japan for the time being. Meanwhile, in Myanmar, the country's security forces clashed with members of the militia in the second-largest city of Mandalay. Local media say security forces raided a militia hideout in Mandalay on Tuesday morning. The military announced that 8 militia members died and 8 others were detained in the raid. Local media quote the militia as saying at least 2 military personnel died as well. Hong Kong's chief executive says the decision by police to freeze the assets of a pro-democracy newspaper on suspicion of violating the national security law was justified. 2 senior Apple Daily executives were charged this month with colluding with foreign forces to endanger national security. Police froze the assets of the paper and 2 of its group companies. The Apple Daily says it'll cease operations after publishing its morning edition on Saturday if the freeze isn't lifted. It may also stop uploading its online version. Carrie Lam insisted at a news conference on Tuesday that the actions do not target press freedom and are necessary to maintain national security.
Don't try to underplay the significance of bridging the national security law. And don't try to beautify these acts of endangering national security. And don't try to accuse the Hong Kong authorities for using the national security law as a tool to suppress the media or to stifle the freedom of expression.
On Tuesday, the paper's morning edition was published as usual, but its online news program was partially suspended Monday evening. Apple Daily founder Jimmy Lai is serving a prison sentence for his involvement in unauthorized assemblies in 2019. The sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has dismissed U.S. expectations for a new round of talks. State media released a statement from Kim Yo-jong, which suggests the United States has misinterpreted North Korea's intentions. She reportedly said the U.S. is trying to comfort itself in a way that would plunge it into a greater disappointment. Last week, North Korea's ruling party newspaper said Kim Jong-un stressed the need to prepare for both dialogue and confrontation with the U.S. That report prompted a response from U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. He told ABC News it was an interesting signal, but said the U.S. needs a clearer one. The back and forth comes as U.S. President Joe Biden's top envoy for North Korea visits the South. Denuclearization talks have been stalled since before Biden took office. An ancient bell taken by a high-ranking U.S. officer after the 1945 Battle of Okinawa is finally returning home. The repatriation of the bell to Okinawa comes as people in the southwestern prefecture prepare to observe the 76th anniversary of the end of the battle on Wednesday. The late General Roy Stanley Geiger, who commanded a Marine Corps unit during the battle, is believed to have taken the bell before he returned to the United States. The bell has been kept in the U.S. state of Florida at the home of Geiger's granddaughter.
Happy on this occasion to be able to return the bell to the Okinawan people.
An Okinawa-based civic group negotiated with her for 5 years before she agreed to return the bell.
Looking at the bell, I hope people won't forget the horror of the battle and the fact that Okinawa not only lost so many people, but its culture and history as well.
The bell will be donated to a prefectural museum. Japan's prime minister has stressed the importance of achieving the government's goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050. Suga Yoshida made the comment during a task force meeting to discuss how much progress has been made toward reaching the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. The targets include eradicating poverty by 2030 and integrating climate change measures into national policies. Japanese officials say more renewable energy is being used in the country, but cite private sector experts who say the increase is still not enough to achieve a carbon-neutral society. It's time now for a check on world weather. A tropical system over the western Pacific may pose threats of major floods to central Japan next week. Our meteorologist Sayaka Mori has the forecast.
Hello there. The northwestern Pacific Ocean is becoming very active. We have a newly formed tropical disturbance over the ocean. This system will likely intensify to a named storm soon, and it could make its way towards the north, aiming for Japan. According to this model, the system will stay over the waters, but it could get very close to Japan. And with the interaction with this rainy season vent, we will see heavy rainfall hitting central Japan and other portions of Japan from the weekend into next week. So flooding and landslides will be a very high concern during that time. Meanwhile, we saw one huge tornado hitting parts of the Great Lakes region during the weekend. Take a look at this footage. The National Weather Service confirmed a large and extremely dangerous tornado in Illinois on Sunday. The tornado damaged homes and torn down trees. Local media reported that more than 22,000 customers were without power in the area. Several people have been injured because of the significant weather event. Now, the storm system is moving away from the Great Lakes region. Right now, this cold front is affecting the southern U.S. and also the eastern seaboard of the United States and portions of Canada. This system caused a lot of wind damage across the northeastern United States on Monday. Drier conditions across many places of the continent, but we might see very active weather pattern across the west. Dry thunderstorms could be popping up in the northwestern United States that could cause more wildfires. We have a red flag warnings in place in places like Oregon, California, Nevada, and Utah. Dangerous conditions will continue in terms of wildfires. We will see temperatures reaching 26 in Seattle and 25 in the U.S. capital on your Wednesday. That's it for me. Have a nice day.